Hello, welcome, yes, all right, hey, welcome, and are you ready tonight, kids, adults, children of all?
Are we sticking with this intro? Is this
Are
what
you
we're
ready?
doing?
Are you ready,
This is
Hunter? Are
this
you
is
ready?
how it's going. This is how it's going.
This is
Welcome
the
to
intro
Nerd
today.
Variety. Welcome to Nerd Variety. We are the
Welcome.
podcast that talks about things. This is
Send us on Twitter how many times we've said welcome so far in this episode.
How many times I have said welcome?
I think it's been 8 collectively.
This was not a good start for me.
We're gonna break a record today.
But let's go back a little bit and let's just say that we just said welcome once and introduced this very smoothly, and it worked out very well. You know why we're going to go ahead and say that? Because our topic for tonight is historical fiction.
So we're taking an event that happened in the past and we're changing it slightly. That intro was flawless, Hunter.
Thank you.
Absolutely spectacular.
Wow, amazing.
I know.
You could have gone with the whole thing that today is Indigenous Peoples Day, so talk about history. Maybe.
Today?
Yeah, it's today.
Oh,
I don't pay attention to holidays except when I teach a class.
I still have to work, so it's
Yeah. It's also yeah. Fun stuff.
So much.
So, yes, today we're talking about historical fiction, the genre that we here cannot seem to entirely decide on. I think we got a good basis, but, this is what we do with our genre discussions.
We always do this.
We do.
We
did it with military fiction last time, I think.
And then we've done it with horror and thriller.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Lots.
I feel like we're all people who wish that we had like really solid definitions for these things, but also like to play devil's advocate. And we're like, oh, but what about this movie?
Yeah.
Then again, these kinds of things I would say are often, umbrella terms, meaning you don't have just one good definition that says it's this and not this. Usually
in reality the movie genre structures is just a giant Venn diagram, I think.
Yeah, everything overlaps.
Yeah.
And like instead of everything being in a box.
Princess Bride is right in the middle.
Yeah. Everything's in a box.
Sci-fi, but
it's not much sci-fi, but it's fantasy, drama, romance, comedy, action, adventure, a little scary at times. So I meant
to say we want everything in a box, but it's in everything overlaps.
It's in all the boxes.
Yes.
Well, unless you're Princess Bride, yeah.
It's horror, it's thriller, it's mystery. Kind of is a little bit of those, but some of those are stretching it more than others. Anyways, that's not what we're focusing on tonight. Mm-mm. So, what do you guys think the best medium for historical fiction is? Hannah?
I was looking through my Steam list before we started this, and I don't really think I have any really historical games. We were playing around with the definition a little bit. I might have some that were set in the past, but I feel like generally that's not where I would expect that. I feel like TV and movies are generally better, or honestly books. A lot of really good historical fiction books. So I think books works well, and then I honestly think TV shows probably superior to movies in most of the time in terms of like being able to really go back and like represent a time accurately, because movies can be kind of rushed
sometimes.
Yeah, but I had a really book heavy curriculum when I was in middle school and high school, and I had a few historical fiction books that I really, really enjoyed. About like the one I really liked was about the French Revolution. It was really good.
Was it Les Miserables?
No, it's called The Scarlet Pimpernel. Yeah. It's about a British guy who sneaks into France and smuggles out French aristocrats before they can get beheaded. But like nobody knows he's doing it. It's not even his wife.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you said this is like middle school time?
It was middle school or high school.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if it was Les Mis, that's a real thick book.
I mean,
that would take a lot of time.
I like thick books.
Yeah, you like thick books. We get it, okay? You keep
She likes
going on about
thick.
it.
I knew that
With
was gonna
two
be
C's.
okay.
It's the
I
two
do.
C
Yeah.
spelling. That's what it
Love
is.
them
Yeah.
thick
It's
books.
Three
I've been-
C's.
Oh yeah.
six.
I've been thinking about trying to read The Lord of the Rings again.
Too many.
Yeah. Well,
Bless you.
Josh, what about you?
I disagree with Hannah.
Gasp.
Yeah. I say movies are the best form of historical fiction. Well, sorry, movies and books are the best form, not TV shows and books. So we disagree slightly.
You mostly agree with me.
Because movies can, they can kind of capitalize on the big parts on the big historical events. You can see them pretty clearly. They usually try to make a big deal of showing them off to the audience, and they stay with us for a long time. And there are a lot of historical fiction films in that historical fiction genre that have stayed with us from since they were released.
So could I argue that movies might be really a lot better at giving like a specific event and saying like, here's this event and like, let's go into detail with it. But if you want to understand like the intricacies of like the 60s, I don't know, right? Then you're going to need a little bit more time to like touch on sort of all of the different things that happened in that decade.
Oh yeah. If you're looking at if you're trying to look at everything that was going on between say that 1960 to 1969, then you need kind of a mini series or a long running series to do that.
Right.
Because you have what was going on between different countries, what was going on in within this one country, what's going on in this specific state of this country,
right.
And what are people talking about? What is the conversation about?
But if you want to look at like a specific battle, you can do that in a movie.
And actually, I think one thing in particular that just came to my mind when you guys are talking about this is now we already discussed before this that it's a bit of a stretch for historical fiction, but you do get some of that in Watchmen. Like when you compare the movie to the TV show, you get a much clearer idea of the alternate history that took place and just what life was like in that during the TV series, the HBO series. And you get a look of it briefly in the movie Watchmen, but the show obviously has much more time to really build specific events and give you,
I think
look at everything that happened.
The difference is a movie can be really good at showing you an event, and TV shows are going to be better at showing you a period of time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we agree with each other, Josh.
I guess we do.
Ha ha ha! I'm victorious.
I think it's maybe not the best, but I think perhaps some of the best examples of historical fiction have been video games.
I'm sure there are. I just don't feel like I'm that familiar with them.
Will you let me finish? Can I finish?
No.
We're supposed to let each other finish. I let you guys finish.
Okay, all right. That's fair.
So the most obvious one, and just immediately in my mind, the one that I can say I feel has done the best job is the Assassin's Creed series, because they get you really engaged and they put you in these periods, these time periods, in these historical settings, and you actually, it's again the entire point of this. It's fictionalized, but a lot of times you partake in historical events. Sometimes you're a leading force in those, and sometimes you're just kind of watching it, just kind of experiencing it. You also have things like I think they call it Discovery Tour in the last two Assassin's Creed games, Origins and Odyssey, where you can actually go through basically guided museum tours, but you're, actually in the world. You can choose whatever character historical person to be in there, and they really kind of walk you through, show you what things were like, what certain monuments were for, some of their history and all that. They will also go through just everyday life in these areas, and it's just, I think that's a very fun and immersive way to really engage somebody in learning about history, as well as the fun fictional parts in the rest of the games. Because then, you especially when you have like villains or something that are, or antagonists or heroes as well, that are close with the character, like the main character, you really get to learn like a lot of historical figures that you may know or you may have heard of, but you get a deeper look at some of their real life accomplishments, or just some things that they've done. So
I feel like, oh, sorry.
Josh was going to say something and I cut him off.
Am I going to say something now?
Well, I was going to agree with you on the showing, say there's a kid who's not really interested in learning about history when he's in history class. And on another hand, that history class probably will teach them, some details about, a historical that they should know for, to get the whole aspect, the right aspect of it. But a video game is a good medium, especially one that can break things down or tell the story, or from maybe someone's perspective that wasn't really talked about in the history book.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of, when I think of historical fiction in terms of movies, I feel like I mostly put it into two subgenres, I guess, which would be sort of the military fiction, and then also I feel like there's a lot of like drama that comes out of historical fiction, and drama I don't really feel like makes for good video games. And the more military fiction side of things is just not something that I'm really into. So I feel like that's why I haven't really played a lot of games that are historical or anything like that. And I feel like Assassin's Creed, I have played a little bit of Assassin's Creed, but I feel like it's still, I don't know.
Wait,
I feel like it's honestly an issue with the gameplay is why I haven't played much of it.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, one thing that, like the first thing that came to my mind was, I went to Nassau at the beginning of the year before COVID was as spread as it was. And I remember going in there and they have a statue, and I'm currently blanking on the guy's name, so that's kind of works against me. But like, I don't think it was the founder, but it was someone real significant. Again, they had like a statue of him, and I'm like, I know him. That guy was in Assassin's Creed 4. That guy was in Black Flag. He was a bad guy, I think. So it's like he helped to like colonize them, change it like from the pirate thing, the pirate like haven, I think they called it. And yeah, I just thought, I was like, hey, I knew something about this place and its history before I've ever even been here. And I didn't even study it like in school. At least I don't think so. If I did, then I paid no attention to it.
Yeah, because you didn't feel like it mattered to you, or it wasn't really something that really affected, you feel it really affected your personal history.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like if we can include, so this goes back to a conversation about genres and what counts and what doesn't count as historical fiction. But I feel like if we can include Assassin's Creed as historical fiction, then we can include things like Merlin and things about King Arthur and stuff like that. Because obviously Assassin's Creed is not real, and they have some pretty weird technology in the games.
In the modern day, yeah. Not really
Well, so like, are you considering parts. Okay, so you're just considering the historical parts to be historical fiction?
Yes, just the historical parts are historical.
Well, I don't know. Like,
and technically
it doesn't
of course,
have to be something that's
add some things, but
yeah, it doesn't have to be something that's completely bounded in reality. You might have some extra like magic or weird technology. I kind of wonder if you would consider Doctor Who to be historical fiction. Occasionally.
Occasionally, when they go back in time, they kind of use like a fantasy setting for some of those time periods, or they add fantasy elements in those time periods, and like because you've probably seen episodes where they're fighting ghosts from like back from like a historical time period. They're fighting supernatural creatures from a time period. So they love the fantasy in there.
Yeah, and there's so many episodes based on real people or real events. Like there's some of them where they just like go to the past, but like most of them are you meet Agatha Christie or William Shakespeare or Charles Dickens, or you go see Mount Vesuvius erupt, right? Yeah. And so they're like definitely real people and real events, but in this sort of sci-fi fantasy sort of world.
Yeah.
Hannah, I feel like you have the most difficult time grasping the concept of fiction.
I don't know.
In regards to so many of these, it's like fiction.
What do you mean?
What does that mean? What's fiction? That's like real, but not, right?
Shut up.
Or if it's not real, if something didn't really happen, does that count as fiction?
It's
question.
I wonder about like what. I mean, if they, were making a movie about Abraham Lincoln and he said like one thing, they like misquoted him, all of a sudden is that historical fiction? Because he never really said that. Like,
well, I mean,
where do we draw the line?
If it's based on a true story, that would be more. Again, I guess it depends on how much of it, because that would be more based on a true story, and that would be nonfiction, yeah.
So if you take
nobody's gonna get it exactly correct. Nobody's gonna ever retell a story exactly how it was told, which would mean if we all used your logic, then that would mean nothing's ever nonfiction.
Okay, but like what if they're telling a story and like all of the people and places are as accurate as they can get them, but they just like inserted an extra character? Is that historical fiction?
I guess it depends on how significant that character is.
It's like the main character or like a supporting character.
Not necessarily.
A lot of times they'll buff up like the quote unquote hero or the good character in this from this like from this period. They'll say that they'll add on to them, or they'll turn this this person that was around into this person was the villain, this person was evil.
Yeah, because I mean in real life he did
more things.
In real life you don't often have like nobody's ever clear cut a villain or a hero.
Sure.
Right.
But I just think about like real scenarios with fake people, like where is that fiction? I mean, I guess it would be because they're not real people, but real people in fake scenarios is also fiction. But like,
are they
not always?
Are they referencing like actual historical events?
Yeah, hypothetically.
Because that reminds me, because I'm thinking of Inglourious Bastards, and there was I haven't seen any evidence of a team of Jewish American soldiers that went around killing Nazis during World War II. I think they reference, they kind of dive into, we're in Europe and Nazis are taking over everything. They've taken over France. They're killing Jewish people. There's a lot of propaganda. There was a plot to kill Hitler. There was a plot to kill Hitler back in the day, but I'm sure that a lot of people try to kill Hitler outside his own people. So that kind of fits what you're talking about there.
I don't know. I don't know where the lines are drawn. I don't understand.
I mean, that's like
they overlap.
A war or action film is what I'm seeing. As soon as I looked it up, I was seeing how other people might have
we talked about
put that movie into a genre.
Yeah, we talked about before we started recording about like Pride and Prejudice and the Jane Austen stuff, which is totally fake characters and fake situations, but just in a specific time period. So there feels like there's all these like categories to me where it's like, okay, real time period, fake people, fake situations, real people, fake situations, fake people, real situations, right?
So
and like,
again,
is all of it just all
for
of it's historical fiction?
for me, I would say there's an umbrella of historical fiction, again, as we've said, and it's to the degree that you want to call it that, I guess, so the degree, the ratio of, I guess, historical accuracy to historical fiction. And to me, I would say that's probably where you, excuse me. Wow, I just ate dinner and it's all starting to come back up.
I get
Well, so I mean, it's
TMI.
I get what you mean, because I'm a very sort of like mathematically minded, analytical person.
I was gonna say that's where probably a lot of people start to argue and debate about whether a movie was good or not based on how accurate certain things were. Like
Right.
one of the, again, I just watched, I mentioned earlier before we were recording, what was it called? The Greatest Showman.
Oh yeah.
I just watched that with my mom the other day, and I was like, or like the first thing she said, I believe, was, well, it wasn't very historically accurate. They definitely took some liberties and stuff. It's like, yeah, so I would still call that historical fiction because, again, it's P.T. Barnum, like him.
So I guess
creating
maybe
the circus and all that. But of course, they took plenty of liberties.
I guess maybe
with
that's
the
my
story
thing, is like being someone who like literally does math for a living. Like I feel like I want numbers. I'm like, if it's 90% fiction or more, then it's not historical fiction anymore. It's just fiction. And if it's 10% fiction or less, then it's not historical fiction. It's just a history. Like it's just a thing that happened.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I want numbers where I'm like, this is how much of the things need to be real or fake in order for it to fall in this category.
Or they make sure they say based on a true story or based off historical events as a disclaimer. Say, hey, this actually happened. And we're telling it to the best of our knowledge, or trying to keep everything as much as we can.
Retelling a story, like a true story, right? Versus just taking a time period and saying, we're just going to write our own story in this time period. I feel like those should be two different things.
Well, and you know what? This made me think, so I decided to Google it, of course, because we don't talk about things, we just Google stuff.
I'm so proud.
This is my first time Googling something, and it's just because of you, Hannah. It's entirely your influence. So Josh, you should try it out sometime.
It's a slippery slope. Now you'll Google everything.
Yes, because we don't do that anyways. So anyways, then, it had me curious about what would we say for mythology. Is mythology still like a subcategory of historical fiction?
Yeah, so I was thinking it's not mythology strictly speaking, but like Robin Hood, right? It's basically like this long-standing fictional character that's being reused over and over again, and is basically he kind of is just like a myth, basically, but set in a time period. Yeah. And so it's like, does that count? I don't know, because if that counts, all of a sudden, like A Midsummer Night's Dream counts, which seems weird.
And again, I guess to an extent, I kind of argued this point before we were recording, but I would say, I would say that, things like that do count as long as it's a historical setting. I would say it falls under the very wide umbrella of historical fiction.
So everything from King Arthur and Robin Hood to Midsummer Night's Dream and Disney's Hercules, all historical fiction.
Well, I can't speak for Midsummer's Night.
Hercules might be a stretch because doesn't that deal with a lot of mythology? Like that's mainly mythology. Like what
so
real
folklore is okay, but mythology is not.
And then again, actually, Josh, this is where I kind of I'm leaning towards.
You stumped me there a little bit, but I'm still like
the thing about like Disney's Hercules is that it takes of like mythology and makes it even more fictional.
That's true. It's not even particularly true to the mythology. That is true.
Yeah.
So like, because
I mean,
to me, like mythology, that's still the main reason I would want to consider that historical fiction is because of how ingrained that was into those stories were ingrained into the culture. So a lot of people really believed those and worshipped these gods that were from mythology and had all these stories and everything. So again, taking that, I kind of it makes me think mythology maybe should fall under the umbrella of historical fiction.
I have something I want to say, but I feel like we're not letting Josh talk.
It's like, okay, look at the King Arthur story.
Okay.
Because and that's mainly looked at through he was a legendary figure.
What do you mean we never let Josh talk? Oh, never mind.
Anyway, he's looked at as a legendary figure. But the movie King Arthur, y'all know what I'm talking about? The one with
maybe there's a lot.
There was Keira Knightley played Guinevere in this one. And they use a lot, and they actually pull like the story of Arthur and set it in like a possible occurrence that could have had with actual historical events. Like they had him as his father was an Englishman who died fighting the Romans, and I think somehow like him and his band and his Knights of the Round Table served the Romans, and they ended up, but they were Englishmen and they wanted their freedom from the Romans, and they ended up working with the Celtic people, who Merlin was their chief, and Guinevere was actually a member of the Celts, and they all worked together to liberate themselves from the Romans.
And magic.
No magic was involved. No, it was all just Merlin was a terrifying Celtic, chieftain who they all thought was, magical and whatnot.
And that's another thing,
But and going back to the point of Hercules, okay, that was like what historically happened during that time period right there. Was there an actual event that was retold?
No,
there wasn't. It was
no, and it wasn't even like one of the stories about Hercules from actual Greek mythology.
So it's more. It kind of goes into more of the fantasy category, kind of like you would put Lord of the Rings and other fantasy stories.
Yeah, I mean, I would almost just a lot of times, we were talking again. We talked about too many things before we started. We mentioned. Dang it, Hannah, I lost it. I was hoping that if I talked enough, it would just come back to me as soon as I started.
Not always.
I got it. Two seconds.
Sure. Go ahead. 1, 2.
I feel like the more that I'm stalling, the further away it's getting from me. But no, I want to say it because it was a good point.
I was wondering about if I don't know. This just occurred to me, and I don't know how you guys are going to feel about it, but I wonder about
I got it.
The Passion of the Christ.
I've never seen it.
Go first.
Anyways, sorry.
Really?
Yes, really. So
We'll come back to
yes. Okay. No, I got it. When talking about historical fiction and everything, one point that I would say, and talking about Hercules, I would almost I wouldn't even necessarily put just about any Disney thing maybe in historical fiction. I almost just want to put Disney stories in their own separate category.
What about
their genre is Disney movies?
No, what they actually retell historical events, but with using some different characters repurposed or just told differently. Some are based off folklore. Some are based off folklore. Pocahontas was based off the actual character in some of the character Pocahontas and John Smith and the Englishmen and the natives coming meeting and having their conflict, even though they didn't put the characters in the right form they were originally in. And
Well,
I can't think of any other ones, but I know.
Well, there's a lot of them that
was based
are
off a true
that are
story.
set in a specific time period, but just with new characters and new stories, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think of like Brave, which I guess technically is a Pixar. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it
But
was
but it's
Pixar or Disney
yeah,
Pixar.
but it's set in a specific time period. But it just has different characters and different stories. Like it's something original, but set in that time. And there's a lot of Disney stuff like that.
Mhm.
I mean, heck, most of the princess movies would be in that category, right?
Yeah.
Brave is definitely one where you get more of like it is a very specific time period and location. You don't get a ton of that in like Cinderella or Snow White, but but like it's the same sort of thing. Like it's set in the past in the specific time, and you can tell because they've done studies on architecture and costuming and accents and all of this stuff. I don't see why that shouldn't count.
Yeah. Which
that
one?
Might fit in.
Brave, yes, that's what. Yeah, you said that like 6 times.
Yeah,
Brave. I knew, and I heard you.
I feel like there's a few other ones. I can't think off the top of my head. I know.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can see that being pretty historical fiction.
It's in a very specific time period and setting, but just with new characters and stories.
Mm-hmm.
So
gotta have some of the like of the the whatever's going on in that period, like whatever is happening socially, politically, whatever conflicts are going on, you kind of have to bring that into the story if you're gonna try to say it's historical.
Yeah, and I
don't know.
Otherwise,
it's just kind of like
to
a certain amount, it's like okay.
Yeah, I don't know
if it's too much made up or too much like mythology, it's fantasy. If it's you got some stuff in there that was okay. I see this. You try to put some history in there, so then it's historical fiction.
Yeah, I don't know if either of you are familiar. It's not technically Disney, but there's Anastasia as well, which is about Anastasia and her grandmother in Rasputin, and it's set in Russia and France. And
I think that was the first movie I saw in theaters.
Oh, it's so good.
Time since I've seen it.
I love it so much.
Yeah. Well, this time feels like it's flown by. Has it really been that long already? That felt real quick. So I just wanted to see if we could jump into a last thing real quick, and if you don't feel like this is good enough, we can do something else. I feel like we have come to a general understanding. I think it always warrants more discussion as usual, but I think we've come to a good enough consensus here where we can start asking, what do we think our favorite pieces of historical fiction are?
Well, I love Anastasia.
So
is that your favorite?
I don't know. Come back to me.
Pick? All right, Josh, what about you?
I do like my sword and sandal films. Gladiator is definitely one of those, and I'd like to recommend, if no one's seen it, Peaky Blinders. It takes place. It's a post World War I, which I think is a period we don't really visit that much, but it takes place in London and deals with the gangs that were going around. And it's just a really good period TV show.
Yeah. I've heard a lot about it, I think, and I've seen some stuff. I don't know. I've never gotten around to it. Yeah. Hannah, did you come up with yours yet?
I think so. And you, it's I don't know. It's rough, but I think I'm going to have to go with Doctor Who.
Okay.
And honestly, I do really love the historical episodes.
Yeah.
Like those are some of my favorites. And I was introducing my friend to the show like back in high school, years and years ago. And I realized completely accidentally, I showed her all my favorite episodes, and they were all episodes about famous writers. Because like I said, there was Shakespeare and Agatha Christie and Charles Dickens. There might be one more that I'm forgetting. But like, it was cool to sort of see their imaginings of these characters and the time periods that they're from. And like Mount Vesuvius exploding and like, honestly, how they did that, and then how they also tied it into like, oh, there's aliens.
Yeah.
It was a good time. It was fun.
I also want to like to add in Legends of Tomorrow is a fun.
Mm.
It's taken
That
from
is
the
a
same
fun
vein
one.
as Doctor Who, but they had DC superheroes like going
Yeah.
back in time and having to fight, their the villains of the season in different time periods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Add some, try to make sure that you can kind of see from this perspective of the people at the time of what's going on with them, and instead of just a textbook example of, oh, this was Marie Antoinette, oh, this was Genghis Khan, this is how this. You'll see how they try to get their personality, the characters, the figure's personality somehow.
Yeah. And I forgot there's a really good 2-part Doctor Who episodes from World War II, which is and there's there's so many. I'll stop because
There's
Hunter
a lot
wants
of
me to
Doctor
stop.
Who things.
Lots of
I
Doctor
mean,
Who.
it's just you haven't given me a second now.
I know. I'm sorry.
But for me, I would say my favorite's probably around the era that you were talking about, Josh. But in video games. So Assassin's Creed Origins, that's one that I really enjoyed personally, and I go back to every once in a while. It's why it's like one of the games that I cannot just ever face to take off of my Xbox One. Because I really enjoy the setting, and it's just fun, dealing with like Cleopatra and her brother. What was his name? He was Pharaoh. He was like the last pharaoh, I think. And then you also get like, is it Alexander? No, maybe it's Caesar. It's a Caesar. Yeah. It's fun stuff. It's the one who was stabbed several times. I'm
Caesar.
blanking on his name. Which Caesar was it? Do you happen to remember?
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways,
I think of the two Caesars, the Caesar that's the one in the Bible, and the one that's the one that gets stabbed a lot.
Yeah, I can think of Caesar Augustus, and that's the only name that's coming to my mind, and I'm pretty sure it's not him.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just think that's a really fun one, and especially seeing like the Colosseums and stuff, even getting to fight in some of those arenas. It's a good time. It's a good time. Not for everybody in the story, mind you, but
no.
Anyways, you guys got anything else?
No, I'm trying really hard not to talk about Doctor Who more, so I should probably be cut off.
Do you want to do a Doctor Who episode?
Yes.
Okay, well, you have a free slot in December, I think, if you want to put that there.
I don't know if you guys are familiar enough to for us to talk about it. I just end up talking for 40 minutes.
I don't know if you're familiar enough to talk about it with me, but I don't know if Josh is.
I'm not familiar with the old seasons, but I'm familiar with.
I will interject with the parts that I've watched.
I mean, if it's not going to be until December, we can give you homework.
Yeah, we can. The only thing I haven't watched is after Peter Capaldi.
I watched an episode with the new Doctor. She's pretty cool. Yeah, but I haven't watched anything before Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah, me neither. Well, I've seen a little bit, but not a lot.
Yeah, teeny tiny bit.
Yeah. Anyways, what do we have next week, Hannah?
I don't know.
Wait, you're supposed to know these
but
things.
I don't know. But I can find out. We're running out of time.
Because we did cosplay last week.
We're doing games you didn't think we'd play, but here we are.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's your topic, I think. So
yeah.
We're excited to talk about that, and I hope you guys come back to join us. Until then,
next week, yeah.
Nerd out.
Bye.
Nerd out. Later.